His truth is marching on. I'm here just to do a particular reference in regard to the research in the development of the possibility of a registration within my cellular division idea. Say to me, free.
Free.
Thank you. The music on that intro is rather a celebration of ideas that I hold about my mind. But it's important that you remember that I'm appearing, apparently, as a body association, and that I intend to join you as somehow separate from the observation of you. May I do so? Here, look with me. The nature of the correspondent, say to me, freedom once more.
Freedom.
Yes, you may hear that music. Isn't that lovely? It's the idea of the possibility that contained within the consciousness of you, with no real regard to your definition of yourself is a body form, okay, is the idea of an entirety of freedom within the nature of what constitutes the notation of God. And we're using God in the sense that the entirety of the universe is going to finally be free, even though at this moment, within our cellular division of self, we appear to have confined it. I'm a master teacher of the conversion activity, of the reasonable idea within the consciousness of myself, that I can alter my idea about myself in regard to freeing myself from the access of what we call stem cell research, in the simple necessity of recognizing on this freedom video that the time in which that's going to be accomplished. And here we are in Stanford, just outside of Palo Alto, on the great El Camino Real. And we're going to be talking, with your permission, from the University of Wisconsin, where the stem cell researchers have been so successful that a lot of them have decided to go out to Stanford. Perhaps because in January it might be a little more pleasant to be under the auspices of the video that I did yesterday, which is in regard to my great-grandpa, okay, who is Charlie Anderson, whose brother, and then we won't get into brotherhood, whose father was Harvey Anderson, whose father was Joseph Anderson, who was a good friend of Leland Stanford. Now, those of you who are going to question in regard to it, I'm going to get through it very rapidly. What I'm associating with is the idea that when we did the video about coming to Wisconsin, the nature of Leland Stanford, who was a good friend of both Charlie Anderson and Harvey, had settled in Port Washington, okay, which is just over here on the lake, okay, in Wisconsin, and had intended to remain there along with Charlie Anderson. Now, all of this is going to stem from the freedom as expressed by, and we're using the term of dates here, in the idea of what we would call the war that went on, in the idea of the conflict of brother against brother. And this is important because the advent of Leland Stanford going in, well, it was after the discovery of gold, so it had to be 1852. He had already settled, along with Charlie and Harvey, in what we showed you at the University of Wisconsin. Listen with me. Here's the importance of what we intend to say to each other in the idea that we have gathered here together in Stanford, okay, augmenting our possibility of conveying ideas of recellular division to the notation that all the possibilities of what we intend to perform in the freedom of ourselves are being defined by a regeneration of how I think I am in my occurrence of an ultimate totality of darkness and fear, which at that moment constituted exactly nothing. And since nothing is impossible, it immediately expanded into the conflict that I'm trying to express. Will you listen with me just a little bit about what we intend to do? Listen. This, then, is our invitation to each other to a great experiment of freedom. Come and see if the religion of your nature and the philosophy of your being can be integrated through the science of your mind into the brilliantly fearless new reality that is your evolutionary destiny, isn't it? Here's the importance of it. Remember that it is impossible that anything that is happening to you is but by accident. You may very simply say, this is the time that I choose to awaken and undergo an experience of a regeneration of my body formulation, and it will be true, and it will always have been true. Here are the teachers in the stem cell research that you have chosen to assist and accelerate the necessary confrontation of your own objective self-identity in the whole eternal, perfectly creating universal mind that surrounds you, so that you may undergo your inevitable experience of resurrection and enlightenment of your body form. What you've been afraid of and denying through your own possessive fear is your own illumination of your mind using the power of light. You are returning to God mind through the memory of your transformation from a temporal being to the reality of eternal life. You listen with me. Right here, right now, is the time for your passage from the idea of a moment of the entirety in darkness to life. Are you ready? Listen with me. From Paul, behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. We shall not all sleep, but we will all be changed in the twinkling of an eye, in the idea of what we term within the nature of the demonstration of a holographic universe, the idea of the simplicity in the conversion of my stem cells. You're in Stanford now, where we've all gathered together, and you're all planning ideas about how, perhaps, you're going to vary the idea of the stem cells of this Charlie Anderson, whose great-grandpa was also named Charlie Anderson, who was a good friend of Leland Stanford, who was a very good friend of Abraham Lincoln.